if you're not here for 5 tips to faster support case resolution, I'm not going to be upset if you walk out the door. So today we're going to go through something that I think is going to be useful for a lot of people. But first we have to get through those forward-looking statements that everybody's seen a million times, right? Okay, so about me. I've been a Splunk user since 2011, so about 8 years now. I am a Splunk Trust member, as you can see, for the last 3 years. I've been a conference speaker, a .conf speaker, this is my 4th time. I've got my Splunk certifications all the way up through Architect. And I'm currently employed by Stage 2 Security, but I'm doing contract work for Adobe. And I would like to thank the guys that I work with and the guys in the Splunk Trust that are here and everybody else that I know of from former positions that are here too. So I appreciate everybody coming. So first thing, why do you want to see these tips? This is something that you probably are wanting to make sure you are here for the right reason. So I often say, happy wife, happy life, right? But it goes without saying that you also want to have a happy boss. So the faster you can get your problems fixed, the more your boss is going to like what you're doing. It also gives you more time for other things. You want to be able to put your time into the things that are most important. Solving a support case can sometimes drag on, so you want to do it as quickly as possible so you have time to do other things. Also, how many of you get killed by the number of emails that you get every day, right? So you're getting many, many emails, and sometimes you don't see the one that's important that came through from support. So this is to help clear up your emails so that you'll be able to solve the problem faster as well. Also, the Splunk engineers will love you for helping them make it easier on them. Now, that's not the only reason that you'd want to make the Splunk engineers happy, but, you know. So, now, why am I doing this presentation? Well, I've spent a lot of years doing a lot of support tickets, and I've come up with some things that have made it easier for me to do. And I recently had a support case where I went through everything all these tips that I have in here, and it made the process go much smoother. I made sure that I was following each one, and I got my support case cleared up way faster than I would have if I'd just put it in like I used to when I first started doing them. So I found lots of these helpful tricks. I also want to help users make the most of their time. I'm in the trust because we are here to help other users, to help you do your Splunk stuff better and faster. I also want to make sure that your tickets don't make my tickets take longer to do, right? So, and also because this is a community talk that was chosen later on in the process. The community group needed to have some talks that they were able to have technical talks as a part of the conference here. And so when they selected me, even though I only had a couple of weeks to get the presentation put together, I said, yes, I want to do that because we need more of the technical talks here at Conf. So one of the things that you'll want to do at the end of this presentation is rate it, and hopefully you'll give me good marks so that in the future we'll have more technical talks like this. So what are you going to get out of this presentation? If you use these tips, you're going to actually be able to control your cases better. You're going to be under the control yourself. You don't have to be dictated to by others, and so you'll be more successful. Also, you'll have a faster time to resolution. How many want to have their support tickets go faster, right? There'll also be better resolutions. there are many times where I've had a ticket closed out only to find later on that the problem wasn't really fixed and I needed to go back and reopen the ticket. So we want to reopen fewer tickets and get better resolutions. Also, hopefully you'll find that doing a support case is much easier than you actually thought. So I'm going to ask you some questions here. How many, let's see, who is this first? Who's this presentation for? It's for Splunk customers with support contracts. Is there anybody in here who does not have a support contract? Okay, good. Because if you don't, it's kind of hard to get support cases. Now, also, you need to be users who can actually create a support case. How many of you know that you can create support cases? Okay, good. This is also for any skill level and also any product category, whether it be enterprise security, whether it be cloud, core, anything is possible, because anything that goes through support cases is something that you can use it for. So now I'm going to ask you some questions about your experience level. So how many of you have never opened a support case with Splunk before? By the show of hands. Okay, good target audience. This is good for you. How many of you have had a bad support case experience? Okay, hopefully we can make it easier on you. How about who wants to make your support cases go faster? That's all? Come on. So how many want a faster TTR? Okay, so hopefully you're not sitting like this waiting for support to get back to you on your support case. So how many of you have opened a P1 support case before? Priority 1. Okay, so there is a couple of things in here for you on that. How many have had to reopen a support case? Not many. Okay, that's good. How many of you have waited an eternity for an answer because you thought you were waiting on support to reply when really they had already sent you an answer and you didn't even know it? There are a few of us out there. I've done that before, and I had egg on my face, right? Okay, we're going to talk about a few things first so that you know. Entitlements. How many do not know what an entitlement is? Okay, good. So entitlements, if you don't have an entitlement, you can't do a case. You have to have a login. That's the thing that gets you in the front door. So you want to also use your business email when you're creating your login for that, because otherwise it may not tie very well to the support case. And we're also going to talk a little bit about understanding the types of cases and understanding the information that you're going to need to provide. So first things first here, the support entitlement. Let's go back here. Your entitlements accompany a valid support case contract, right? So the support case contracts, you could have multiple entitlements that your company has. In fact, where I work at Adobe, we have multiple entitlements. And you may actually have to have multiple entitlements in order to get certain types of support cases. For instance, if you're using enterprise security or the ability to do a P1, sometimes those require different entitlements. So you want to make sure that you've got all of your entitlements. If you're a large organization, then make sure that you get the ones that you need. Also, ask your customer support manager, if you have one of those, or your sales rep to get your entitlements. And you want to get that login that you've got and tied to those entitlements. So first, your Splunk.com login. How many of you do not have a Splunk.com login yet? Anybody? Okay, so we can probably skip through this pretty well. You want to verify that your login is going to work, so also keep your password handy. Especially if you're trying to do a P1, having that password is really important because it's going to be the thing that gets you in faster, and if you're having to look for it, that's kind of bad. So You know, sometimes you get that dreaded CAPTCHA there. Hopefully that's not going to happen to you. Now, once you get in, you're going to want to go to the support portal, and that allows you to then get in to see your entitlements also. And your entitlements, you'll see, are right here. That's on the left side when it comes up. Now, once you are there, you can see what entitlements you do have. So they'll be listed. And you can have multiple entitlements that might be listed there. So that tells you for sure which ones you need to see. And I blacked out my entitlements so that nobody can use mine. How many of you are registered with more than one Splunk.com login? Anybody? Yeah, I've got several. And if you've got one, you want to make sure that you are actually using the right one with your support cases. I actually had a couple of support cases that I submitted when I changed jobs recently. And when I did it, I didn't realize that I had done 2 support cases that way. And when I finally realized it, I tried to ask support if they could migrate my support cases from being on the one company to the other. And they said, no, you've got to completely, we'll just close those out and you'll have to resubmit them. And so that started the clock ticking over again as well. So you want to make sure when you have multiple logins that you are using the one that you have specifically for the support case that you need to do. Also, you can phone in your support cases, but you still will need your entitlements. Doing the phoning in is very helpful, particularly in a P1. If you are submitting a P1 case, then it's going to have at the bottom of the web page when it's all done, it will tell you that you need to call in to support to make sure that they can get the ball rolling, because the clock doesn't start ticking on there until someone actually sees it. So you could submit it, and it may take a little bit before somebody actually gets to look at your case, and once they do, then the clock starts. So if it's a P1 and you've got 2 hours, if they don't get to it for 20 minutes, it could be 2 hours and 20 minutes before you get someone to call you. So make sure you get a call in quickly. And you can also do that on your other cases. If you create the case, you've got your case number, call them up and say, hey, did you get my case? That starts the clock ticking faster. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the different cases. P1 means everything's down, nothing's working, we are out of luck, and we've got to get this done fast. So P2 is more of a feature that's not working, or there's something that is supposed to work but it's not working as it's documented. P3 is a very smaller feature that's not operating as documented. You've got a little problem with it, but it's not really major. And then a P4 is a request for enhancement or general questions. So you can actually ask general questions through this, which a lot of people don't do. But my suggestion is, if you're going to do general questions, you might want to be in the Slack channels and ask your question there. Who here is not using Splunk Slack channels for anything? I would highly suggest you do that. I don't have that on here, but I should. A lot of times you can get answers to your questions faster on Slack than you can from support. So that is also a good thing to do. Now, this web page, this will be available later on that you can see it. But that web page that is right there is one which gives a really good full description of all of the support information, how long, the response times, the hours of operation, the different levels of things, so it can help you a lot that way. So as you are going through and creating your support case, you get this page where you have to put in a lot of this information. The ones that are in red on these are ones which you are required to fill out. Now, your subject is an important one. You want to make that subject be something that is very descriptive but succinct. Now, by that I mean you don't want to say having trouble with indexers, right? You want to say indexers are blocked and data isn't coming through. Or cluster master is no longer talking to indexers. Or the deployer can no longer push cluster bundles out to the search heads. Make it be descriptive. You also are going to have them asking things about your OS, the deployment, whether it's on cloud or on-prem. And then here comes the important part. You're going to dig into details of the problem and give those in the description. Now that's where this first tip comes into play. You want to review the problem before you submit a case. Do you really understand the problem? Have you been able to explain it to someone? A lot of times it's good to explain it to a coworker so that you can actually think about it in your own mind. If you can do that, then you can probably fill out the description pretty well. So characterize it to one of your coworkers. You want to also explain the extent of that or scope of that problem. Give details about how many indexers you have and how many are having problems, or what kind of impact it's giving to your entire cluster or user group. You're also going to want to be able to have a way to show about reproducing the problem. If the problem is reproducible, then you want to add that. A lot of times it isn't reproducible. It's something that you say, okay, I need to actually show you through doing a Zoom or WebEx time with you, so the support engineer will then contact you and give you that information to be able to do a WebEx, and you can do that. But you want to, if you can give information about the reproducing the problem, that's good. Like a search or that works, or anything that is showing what there is. And make it be step by step if you can. Now, sometimes when you do that, you actually self-solve your own problem, because you then understand the problem and you can find out what's going on. That can save you the entire process of doing your support ticket. If you understand it, you might figure it out. A lot of people will try to do a support ticket a little bit early on, and they start the process, and they're getting in there and putting it in, and then they submit it, and then they start looking at it a little bit more, and then they find out that they really did understand it, and they could have saved themselves the problem of even doing the ticket. Self-solving is really a good way to try to do that. You can also get on Slack and ask questions, or on Answers and ask a question, and sometimes you'll get that answer back even faster. So self-solve before you do a ticket can be better than actually opening a case. So the next one, Splunk Answers. How many of you are using Splunk Answers? Okay, good. Now, one of the things that I always say is don't use the search that's in Splunk Answers. You want to use Google search. The best ways to do that are to, well, I'll show you here real quick. Answers have a built-in search, and it's usually less helpful than using Google. So here's an example. I've got this search that is just looking for field extraction problems. I put that into the search in Answers, and I get 52,000 possible results. That's a lot. If I do that in Google the right way, I get 907. That's a huge factor difference. You know, it's only 2% the number of results, and they're also better results. So how do I do that? Google search, of course, you just say site:/answers.splunk.com, and then your search terms. If you have a string, like from an error message, put quotes around the string. That way you won't get the ones that have all the words, but not the context. So if you have something like, this error on server MST3000 is really bad, if that's the error message you get, probably this error on server and is really bad are the two parts that would be what you would see as your error message, and MST3000 is not part of it. So you want to make sure that you don't quote the entire thing. You want to take out that server name so that it's just the smaller, just the smaller amount there. And put quotes around the different parts. That helps. And if you have just an individual keyword, that is helpful as well to put quotes around it. And that's going to say, I want this to absolutely be in there. So if it's just a single word, but it has to be in there, put double quotes around it. Be specific, but allow for variations. So like with that case where we had the server name in there. Allow for variations, but if you can be as specific as possible, that helps. How many of you have used btool? Okay, part of you. btool is your friend. btool can help you figure out if your configs are the problem. Because you can look in a configuration file and say, oh gosh, that's in my configuration file. That will for sure be doing the right thing. But then you find out later on, when Splunk support gets back to you, you find out that you've got it misconfigured. And you'll send a diag in and it'll have the information, and they'll know that it's the wrong configuration, but you won't. So use btool. So the way that you could use btool is you do Splunk, btool, and then a configuration file. So like limits. And you don't use limits.conf, you just use limits. And then list. So that's going to list everything that it sees that it's going to use from all of your configuration files. The -- debug that's there tells you which file it's found in. So that can be a real clue as well. So that if you do the btool on some particular parameter, like the max kbps, you can find out which file Splunk is going to use that gives you that actual max kbps, because the -- debug will tell you the file.
When you use btool, do you have to supply the complete path?
No. No, in fact, you don't use that, the path at all. You just need to say limits or outputs or inputs.
It'll find all the instances of that file.
Yes, so it's going to go through every instance of all the files, and the one that it has that it knows that it's going to use that one. You could have 20 different files that all have the same parameter being specified, but only one of them will be used. And it will tell you which one. If you use the -- debug, it actually tells you which file. So look for the containing file with -- debug. And also, if you want to eliminate the things that are in there by default, like system defaults, you can do that with a pipe to fgrep-v on system/default. And that will eliminate all the things that would come out normally through system default. And one of the things that's nice is if you know the difference between fgrep, grep, and egrep. So fgrep is a fast grep, so if you've got a lot of stuff coming out and you don't want to use regular expression at all, then fgrep is good for that. Grep is going to be able to allow you to do regular expression searching, and egrep actually does extended regular expressions. So using the different ones is always helpful, depending on what you need. Okay, tip number 4, submitting diags. So my suggestion here is as soon as you get a support ticket number, you send those diags in. If you don't, support is just going to come back and ask you to submit those diags anyway. So you might as well get it done ahead of time, because then you're ahead of the game. They don't have to come back and ask you for it. Then you have to send them, and then they look at them afterward. You can put them right in immediately. Now you can upload the diags right from your servers, rather than downloading them and then uploading them through the web interface. A lot of times people will do that because they don't know that you can actually do that directly from your servers. But you will have to have the case already opened and have the case number in order to do that. So you'll be prompted for your password now. In older versions, you would have to put the password on the command line. That no longer is the case, so that you don't have that in your history. So if you don't want to have your credentials available to security to see that and have a problem with it, then you want to, it now asks you for the password. So you can see that you've got the Splunk diag, and then you can either do an upload, which immediately uploads it, or you can upload a file name and give it the file name. So if you have already started your diag and it creates it, and your file then is available to send, you can send that using the upload file instead of the upload. But if you haven't, yes? Oh, darn. That's too bad. I'm sorry.
Check your connection. It might be the pressure we're putting on the laptop.
I see it just fine on here. Okay. So anyway, I won't use that anymore, except to fast forward. Okay. Thank you. So you can either upload immediately as you're creating it or after the fact. You want to have your case number there, and then you use your username and have a description. And then that makes it a lot faster. Because if you have to download it, particularly if you're doing this from, say, home in the middle of the night, you might have a lot slower web connection, and downloading a big diag and then uploading it can be expensive. So just do it directly from your servers, and it's a lot easier.
Or you have awful jump hosts to
Yeah.
prevent
Yeah. Also you want to do the diags for any machine that's involved. If you have a cluster master and some indexers that are having a problem, then you'll probably want to send the diags for at least a couple of the indexers and the cluster master. If it's a problem with the deployer and the search heads, then you want to send a deployer and several search heads. So details. It's important what you put in and what you leave out, right? So you want to include all relevant details. You don't want to do details that are not necessarily important, but you want to make sure you get everything that's relevant in there. And you want to also make sure that you tell the impact of this problem. So if it's causing only some of your indexers to have a problem, or if it's causing all of your search heads, whatever it happens to be, that's what the impact that you want to give them and let them know. Also, you want to note any recent changes. It could be a couple of days since you made a change to some config file, but if you had that change, it may take a couple of days before that change actually is notable in the problem that you're having. So make sure that you note any recent changes that you've done in your configuration. If you've added new indexers, new search heads, maybe that's the problem. Just note those recent changes. If you had an OS change, or let's say that you had some related service like email or LDAP, any additional apps that you've loaded on, those are things that you want to also include so that they know what might be impacting. For instance, if you say, we are no longer getting emails sent out on alerts. Well, if you had to change to some email things, that might be a reason that it's not working. So try to give them all of those recent changes. Also, you want to describe anything that you've attempted to use as a remedy for your problem. Being able to have those available so that they know that you've tried that. They may tell you to try it again, right? Well, why don't you restart the server again? That's fine. But if you've told them that you've done that, they at least know that in some cases, they don't have to tell you to do that, and then you don't have a back and forth email trying to get that taken care of. Okay, so those are the 5 tips, some helpful resources. That first one is the one that I had earlier in the slide deck, and then there's another one on the support programs, so you can use those. So anyone have any questions? Yes?
When you use the diag tool to upload to the support case, let's say you want to have your system admin upload that because you're not an admin on that server, will their regular Splunk.com account work, or does it have to be the person who opened the case?
It should be the person that opened the case, but it can be someone else.
It has to be on the entitlement.
Yeah, you have to be on the entitlement, though. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Is there any way of getting the questions on Splunk Answers like clearer also instead of half problem? Because I see those a lot of like the title is half problem or please help.
Yeah, and then you don't have an answer?
Well,
Or-
just if you're looking at the titles,
Oh, uh-huh.
like I have a problem. Well, I figured you did. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah, it would be nice if they had that. I don't know that they have a way of, do you know?
You could take the Greg Woodcock approach and comment on that saying, your question is terrible, please rephrase this. And hopefully they do. But really it's because Answers is a user-driven thing, it's kind of hard to, it's hard to do. The moderators will try and get in there first, but stuff slips through.
Yeah, sometimes we can edit that to give it a better title. But if you notice that, you know, like you said, let us know. Okay. Other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone.